Hey, my name is Leanne, and I'm fascinated with helping women navigate how to eat, move, and care for their bodies. This has taken me on a journey from vegan, keto, high protein to everything in between. I'm a small town holistic nutritionist turned 3-time international bestselling author turned functional medicine practitioner, offering telemedicine services around the globe to women looking to better their health and stop second-guessing themselves. I'm here to teach you how to wade through the wellness noise to get to the good stuff that'll help you achieve your goals. Whether you're seeking relief from chronic ailments, striving for peak performance, or simply eager to live a more vibrant life, this podcast is your go-to resource for actionable advice and inspiration. Together, we'll uncover the interconnectedness of nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, and mindset, empowering you to make informed choices that support your unique health journey. Think of it as quality time with your bestie mixed with a little med school so you're empowered at your next doctor visit. Get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn about your body and how to care for it healthfully. Join me as we embrace vitality, reclaim our innate potential, and discover what it truly means to pursue healthfulness. Hello and welcome. Today we're chatting about what really happens to your gut after antibiotics. Now, I recently had a UTI, which I have not had a UTI since I was probably 17. I don't even know the last time I had one. And as I was doing all of my natural things that I do for a client, if they were to have a UTI, I'm thinking, wow, probably 97% of the population would just go to their doctor and ask for help, and the doctor would give them an antibiotic. And within 5 days, I no longer had a UTI and life was good. And I thought, I should probably talk about antibiotics on the podcast. So here we are. And I'm not the first one to have this idea. I've actually had quite a few people reach out and say, you need to talk about antibiotics and your thoughts on it. So for those of you who are like, wait a minute, you have a UTI protocol? I do. If you go to healthfulpursuit.com/full-script, you can check out the protocols that I've put together. I even have an antibiotic overcoming protocol. So if you've been on antibiotics or you're prescribed antibiotics and you need some sort of support, I've put it all there. So when you go to healthfulpursuit.com/full-script, it's going to take you to a page. It's going to ask you to sign up. Once you've signed up, you can go to the templates and outlines, and there's a whole bunch of stuff there. Plus, you get 20% off supplements. So that's always a win, and enjoy that. So today we're going to be talking about antibiotics, whether or not they wipe out both the good and the bad bacteria, what first steps to take, like hydration, gentle foods, going low and slow, and strategically building up your microbiome with probiotics, prebiotics, fermented foods, because these things, they're pretty epic. I'll also share some of the key nutrients and tools that I use in my practice to repair gut lining and what to do if you're dealing with diarrhea. And most importantly, how long recovery really takes, because oftentimes a round of antibiotics can be anywhere from 5 to 20 days. And individuals think, well, when I'm done with the antibiotics, then we're good to go. Absolutely not, because the truth is 6 months to a year is a normal timeline to start thinking about healing from antibiotics. Yeah, 6 months to a year. So that's a lot longer than a couple days. If you've ever wondered how to bounce back from antibiotics, today is your episode. Share it with your friends. And if you're in the mood, I would love for you to share a review for the podcast, because without your reviews, no people find the show. And then I can't continue doing what I love, and you can't continue getting episodes. So it works out for both of us. The way the reviews work is that as you share what you like about the show, people search for those items and they find your review, and then they give the show a listen. So if you are enjoying like 3-star or higher of the episode, I would love for you to leave a review on your favorite podcast player. It helps so much. And goodness me, I have not had a lot of reviews recently. I think it's just out of sight, out of mind. And so I'm bringing it to your mind. If you could just take a couple of moments, that would be fantastic. Okay. Before we jump in, I just want to share a message that I received from a listener. So she shared, I was just listening to your podcast on healing yesterday and how it can go wonky. And I was thinking it would be great if you could do a podcast for people who just have done a necessary round of antibiotics and need to start fresh rebuilding their guts. I successfully detoxed, deparasited, and healed leaky gut. And then I just did 14 days of antibiotics after an abdominal abscess following an appendectomy. I want to rebuild my gut in the right way, and I think this might benefit a lot of people. Let me tell you. Will it ever? So she went on to explain how during the course of antibiotics, her bowel movements completely changed. Her words were that it looked like moon dust and there was no smell, almost like lifelessness. So after finishing a round of antibiotics, she's been dealing with constant diarrhea and is worried that she's not absorbing her vitamins and minerals. And she told me, I honestly thought I had my gut back to good. And now that I've had the antibiotics, I've taken a big step back. So I just want to make the best choices going forward. And I get these a lot. I just know how many listeners can probably relate to the antibiotic thing. I got a mouth graft, a gum graft, terrible thing. Don't recommend it. That would have been like maybe 2019 or so. It was terrible. And I never wanted to do that again. And as with all surgeries, doctors just give you antibiotics and they're like, take this just in case. And I'm like, absolutely not. I will not be doing that. So I can't even tell you the last time I did an antibiotic. I try to avoid them. I'm not against them. I'm hoping today I can both educate you on what they do in the body and if you need to take them, how to prepare yourself and how to get off of them without affecting your microbiome too much. Now, we think of microbiome in the gut only, but it's throughout the entire body. So even post antibiotics, we can have vaginal issues, we can have ear infections, nose infections, sinus infections, literally anywhere inside the body and even skin. There can be issues outside the body too. So let's just talk about it. So from a functional medicine perspective, antibiotics are something we try to avoid whenever possible. And that's because they don't discriminate. They don't just kill off the bacteria causing an infection. They also wipe out the diversity and the beneficial microbes that keep your body healthy and balanced and protected. There are microbes that protect you from E. coli. There are microbes that create butyrate to reduce inflammation in your gut. The antibiotics are going to annihilate all of it. There are microbes like Akkermansia, which has gained in popularity. It literally balances your blood sugar. So after a course of antibiotics, if you're dealing with insulin dysregulation issues, well, it could be the antibiotics. Now, your gut microbiome is like a lush rainforest. It's a diverse ecosystem where every species plays a specific role, like what I just mentioned with some of these. So antibiotics are like the bulldozer that goes through the rainforest. They may remove the harmful invaders, but they'll also take down the trees, the plants, the animals, the soil, just everything. And specifically everything that makes the ecosystem thrive. And that fallout can ripple through not only your digestion, which is what we think of when we think of antibiotics. We're like, okay, my digestion's going to take a hit, but immunity, nutrient absorption, hormones, even mood and energy can be impacted by a simple round of antibiotics. Okay. So I'm all for taking it if we need to, but oftentimes I see it being prescribed when we don't even know what's exactly happening. That's not ideal. So in functional medicine, we're always asking, what's the root cause? Seriously, I could get that tattooed on me and it's probably the thing that I think of most. What's the root cause of this? What's the root cause of this? Do we really need antibiotics? Are there other ways to support the body so that it can clear the infection naturally? In the case of many sinus infections or ear infections, oftentimes it's mold. So yes, maybe we need antibiotics to stabilize things, but perhaps we should go after the mold so we stop getting the sinus infections. Even skin issues can resolve without antibiotics when we support the immune system and the terrain. So that's where things like targeted antimicrobials, drainage support, probiotics, diet, and lifestyle become first line strategies. I don't want to see you in my clinic when you've been on 20 rounds of antibiotics. I mean, I'll see you and I'll help you. But I would rather the individual that's wait, I keep being prescribed antibiotics. There has to be a reason why. Maybe I should figure out what's going on with my body after like the second round. And you're like, there's something wrong with this. So here's the nuance in all of this. There are times when antibiotics are absolutely necessary, like a ruptured appendix, sepsis, severe bacterial pneumonia. In fact, that might be the last time that I had antibiotics. I got the worst case of pneumonia because I was walking around on New Year's in a bathing suit in Calgary, Alberta in the snow. So yeah, of course I did. In those situations, antibiotics have saved lives. And I am not saying that in those cases, we should be like, wait, I just need some oil of oregano. Absolutely not. So it's really about this balance. It becomes, how do we minimize the damage and create a recovery plan for the gut? In those situations, it's like, give me the antibiotics, give me the good stuff, and I will work to create balance as I take this antibiotic. And in other cases, it's, hold on, do I need these antibiotics? Is it a preventative antibiotic? Can I take another option? So instead of just seeing these antibiotics as inherently good or bad, what I try to do with functional medicine is they should be the exception, not the rule. And I think with allopathic, it's the rule and not the exception. So there needs to be a level of discernment reserved not only for understanding the risk of not taking them, but the risk of taking them, right? Of just like, which outweighs the other? What's the cost to the gut? What's the cost to the full microbiome ecosystem of the body? And am I willing to make that cost? Like, I'm going to be talking about a surgery that's coming up for me. I'm going to be chatting about that in October. And I just know that the doctor is going to send me home with antibiotics. I am going to tell the doctor I will happily take the antibiotics with me. So I have them if there's an issue, but I'm not comfortable taking these just because. So that's the lens that we are bringing into this conversation, avoiding antibiotics whenever possible, but also giving you the tools to recover if and when you decide to take them. I think that that's a fair strategy. So when we zoom out, antibiotics don't just affect digestion, right? They affect the entire body. About 70% of your immune system actually lives in your gut. So that means that when antibiotics wipe out the microbial diversity, they also lower your immune defenses. So like in the case of E. coli, like if you don't have the proper balance of bacteria, chances of getting an E. coli infection skyrocket. So you're left with less protection against not only these other bacterias like future bacterial infections, but also yeast overgrowth, viruses, H. pylori. You do not want H. pylori, let me tell you. On top of that, your gut bacteria play a role in producing immune messengers like short chain fatty acids. And these regulate inflammation. They keep your immune system from overacting. And without them, you're going to see more inflammation, more food sensitivities, and even flare-ups of autoimmune symptoms. In fact, there are certain bacteria that when they are low, they cause autoimmunity in the body. Like, this is serious stuff. And then there's the detox side of things. So a healthy gut microbiome helps process hormones, it binds toxins, it prevents harmful compounds from recirculating in the body. So when antibiotics clear your body's cleanup crew, then all of a sudden you're not able to detox properly. We're going to have more toxic buildup, more hormone imbalances. Specifically, we're going to see estrogen excess issues. So functionally speaking, like, antibiotics aren't just about digestive upset. Like, we need to get out of our minds that, oh, it's just going to make me constipated for a couple days. Like, they ripple out to immunity, inflammation, detox, hormones. Like, your whole body is affected by this. So before we move on like what to do after the antibiotics and all of that, I just want to pause and talk about something that often gets overlooked. And it is, what should we be doing if we decide to take antibiotics and we're taking them currently? Like, should we be doing something while we're doing the antibiotics? Because recovery doesn't just wait until we're off of them. We need to start laying the groundwork during the course of antibiotics. So if I am prescribed antibiotics and I decide to take them, here's the strategy that I am going to be incorporating in my body immediately. First, Saccharomyces boulardii. This probiotic is Probably the one that I suggest the most on protocols. Seeking Health is my favorite because it's low cost and high quality. It's one of my top recommendations for antibiotic use. It's a probiotic yeast, which means that antibiotics don't kill it. And it's been shown to lower the risk of antibiotic-associated diarrhea and support the immune system throughout antibiotic use. And it's something that you can take daily right alongside your prescription. Now, not all probiotics survive antibiotics, so this one's important. I would say when I'm doing a probiotic / antibiotic protocol, I'm usually recommending the antibiotics be taken separately, wait like 2 hours, and then hit your body with all the extra stuff, including the S-Boulardii. We also have spore-based probiotics. These are another great option, like during antibiotic treatment. These are basically hardy strains that survive stomach acid and make it through the digestive tract completely intact. And they can help stabilize your gut even when antibiotics are still working. In addition, when we're dealing with antibiotic issues, sometimes SIBO will come up, and spore-based probiotics won't trigger SIBO like other blends that have lactobacillus or bifidobacterium. And bifidobacterium and lactobacillus blends are important. Since antibiotics will wipe out these strains, it's best to take them like 2 to 3 hours away from the antibiotic dose, because what's the point in taking an antibiotic and a probiotic, but the antibiotic kills the probiotic, right? Like, we want to get the beneficial bacteria where it needs to go without it getting killed by the very thing that we're trying to protect it against. You know what I'm saying? Also, because antibiotics do affect gut lining, it's important to incorporate nutrients like L-glutamine, zinc carnosine, collagen, electrolytes, trace minerals. They won't interfere with your medication, but they do help with intestinal lining and really keep absorption like as strong as possible. Another component that you need to think of as you're taking antibiotics is the yeast balance. So when antibiotics clear out large numbers of bacteria, yeast takes over. Yeast infections are so flippin' common after we've done antibiotics. So that's one of the reasons that people get thrush or vaginal yeast infections or bloating after antibiotics. S-Boulardii plays like a triple threat role here. It doesn't just help with diarrhea, it also keeps yeast growth in check. And on the diet side, pulling back on sugars and refined carbs and all of those things while on antibiotics will make it much, much harder for the yeast to thrive. And these small adjustments can make such a big shift. I would also say that oil of oregano is a really great one to add while you're on the antibiotics to just help crush any yeast that could be popping up, because you and I both do not want to end up with a yeast infection, right? So instead of waiting until we're done with the course of antibiotics, like, I will never understand why when people are sick or taking medications, they stop their protocols. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Absolutely not. When I'm sick, I triple my protocol. I'm like, let's go all in. I want to murder this thing out of my body. Just get it out. Big news if you've been checking out Make Peptides. On October 1st of 2025, all product prices are going to go up by about 10%. But here's an insider tip that we've locked in for you. If you set up a subscription before the end of September, your prices get locked in at today's rate all the way through to January 2026. So even better than this is that all subscriptions save you money automatically. When you set up your subscription, not only are you locking in today's price, but you're also going to get 10% off all of your orders up until your 4th month, where that 10% savings is going to shift into a 20% off every single order forever. So by the time the price increase hits for you in January, you'll already be saving more than everybody else. So don't wait. Set up your subscription today and keep the best prices locked in before the end of the month. You can go to healthfulpursuit.com/make or healthfulpursuit.com/quiz if you want suggestions on which peptides I think would be best for you. So now that we have that foundation in place of, we've assumed that you're going to take the antibiotic, here are some steps you can take while you're doing the antibiotic. Now we need to think about right after, what are we doing? So the most important thing in the early days is to not overwhelm your gut. It has just been through some stuff. If you've properly prepared and you've done the oil of oregano, the Espellardi, the spore-based probiotics, maybe the lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, and you have like L-glutamine and zinc carnosine, all those things dialed in as you're taking the antibiotics, the recovery will be a lot quicker, but we also don't want to totally overwhelm your body. And so step one is hydration and minerals. So antibiotics can really throw off your fluid balance, which means it's going to throw off your electrolytes, especially if you're dealing with diarrhea. So this means prioritizing water, but not just like plain water. When we have diarrhea or we're dealing with hydration issues, oftentimes our minerals will be a little bit wonky. So adding a pinch of sea salt or an electrolyte solution can go a really far way to restoring balance to your gut. Step two is easy to digest foods. So in the beginning, you're probably going to be lower in bacteria like Akkermansia, Faecalibacterium, these ones that need like a proper nutrient balance, specifically types of foods. Like in the case of Akkermansia, it responds really, really well to red and purple foods. In the case of Faecalibacterium, it's going to respond better to starchy foods. And so just having a well-rounded support, I would say it's really not the time for giant raw salads with like a lot of rough fiber. Instead, think like cooked soft foods like bone broth, well-cooked vegetables, chicken, fish, that sort of thing, like some white rice, some smashed sweet potato, to start building up that flora again. Because how we build up flora, sure, we can bring in probiotics. That's great. But the plants, the foods that you're eating, girl, way better. Step three is patience. So we've already talked about Espellardi. I would continue with Espellardi and spore-based probiotics during the course of the antibiotics and into overcoming the whole thing. Absolutely essential to keep the probiotics going. So once that foundation is in place, like the hydration, the gentle foods, the probiotics, then you're ready for the next phase, which is really building the microbiome. So if you followed the steps that we talked about, like during your antibiotic course, like using Saccharomyces boulardii, and that'll help reduce diarrhea and keep the yeast in check, and the oil of oregano and the gut lining support. Now that we're done with the antibiotics, we're kind of through the first couple weeks of like incorporating soft foods and building up the gut bacteria. Now we really need to like expand the lineup of probiotics. So we definitely want to keep the Espellardi for like a few more weeks. It's still protective and it helps maintain balance while your microbiome is reorganizing. It also helps increase your secretory IgA, which probably took a hit. We want to stay consistent with your spore-based probiotics. And now's the time to bring in like a multi-strain lactobacillus or bifidobacterium blend so that we can really bring up the good bugs and just build them up like 50 million to 100 million plus for like a month or two to just really boost it up. We want to start thinking about prebiotics and fiber, really feeding that ecosystem. So probiotics alone don't rebuild the gut. They do not. They need food. And this is where prebiotics come in. So cooked, gentle prebiotic foods like asparagus, leeks, onion, garlic, Jerusalem artichokes are awesome. Then you have your resistant starch like cooled potatoes, green bananas, white rice. Make sure to cook and then cool these because the resistant starch is activated through cooling. And then you have soluble fibers like flax and chia and oats. Just make sure that the oats are glyphosate free. 1 Degree is a really good brand and you can get it at Costco, like across Canada and the United States at this point. And then we want to rotate them. We want to bring in fermented foods, which is like a living diversity for your gut. So starting with a teaspoon of sauerkraut juice or a couple bites of like kimchi, for example, and working your way up with coconut yogurt and kefir and a small glass of kombucha. Now with the kombucha, if you have a reaction to it, it's probably a yeast reaction. And that just means that we need to address with a yeast protocol. Like the big picture here is diversity. Like the real goal isn't just getting bacteria back. It's to rebuild a diverse, resilient community that can adapt and protect you long term. Like if you go into the rainforest, it's not all trees. Like there's shrubs and animals and ponds. And so we need to make that diversity. If you just go in with a probiotic and think that's enough, you're just putting a bunch of trees in a rainforest, and that's not going to be enough to create the ecosystem. where the beneficial microbes thrive and yeast or pathogens are less likely to take over because they just cannot. So we want to shift from microbes themselves to the environment that they live in, and that will help to repair and strengthen the gut lining so that that ecosystem can totally flourish. And there are a bunch of protocols for this on my full script. So if you go to healthfulpursuit.com/fullscript, you can check out some of the ones that I've put together for you. So now that we've started to rebuild your microbiome with the probiotics, the prebiotics, the fermented foods, the next piece is super important. Basically repairing the house that all these microbes live in, and that's the gut lining. And the gut lining is so thin. I worked in a cadaver lab one summer when I was, 19 maybe. And I won't get too graphic, but I got to learn how thin the gut wall is. And let me tell you, it is paper thin. So antibiotics don't just affect that paper thin. They don't affect just the bacteria. They also affect the paper thin lining of your small intestine, and they leave it more permeable, meaning like basically cheesecloth, and less efficient at absorbing nutrients. So if these walls of your gut are weak, even the best probiotics won't survive it. So we need to strengthen that wall that's paper thin and bring as much strength to that area that it is a strong muscle and less of a tissue paper cheesecloth situation. So nutrients will help this, like L-glutamine. It's one of the most important amino acids for gut health. It fuels the very cells that line your intestine. Zinc carnosine is also a super powerhouse. It's shown in research to calm inflammation and speed repair. We also have collagen or gelatin, and I like to do this in the form of bone broth. You can add the bone broth to smoothies, teas, soups, and just help you restructure the gut lining with a whole food. Vitamins A and D are also like pretty crucial. They also help with mucosal lining. So then there are also anti-inflammatory fats like omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil or algae or even just flax and chia, which can promote anti-inflammatory like cushion for the gut lining. Yeah, so incorporating salmon, sardines, those things can be super helpful as well. And then we want to support digestion itself. So like if food isn't breaking down properly, it puts even more of a strain on your gut lining, and that's where gentle support really comes in. So bitter foods like arugula or radicchio or dandelion greens can stimulate stomach acid, bile flow, and help with elimination. You can also bring in digestive bitters like Bitter X from Quicksilver is one of my personal favorites, and like a small amount of apple cider vinegar before meals can do the same, just like triggering peristalsis. You definitely want to make sure that you're going to the bathroom. So if you're not, you need to figure out what's going on there and really get yourself going, like ideally twice a day, amazingly after every meal. That's kind of what we're shooting for, but many, many people don't have that. Meal timing and rhythm is also really important. Eating smaller, like easier to digest foods every like few hours. The best way to support your gut is spacing meals 3 to 4 hours apart. It lets your migrating motor complex, basically the natural wave that cleans out your intestines, do its job while not going too long between meals, because it's basically like this sweeping of the construction site that then moves the mass through your body. So as you're rebuilding your microbiome with this good bacteria from food and your probiotics and everything we've chatted about, just don't forget to repair the walls, because it's not a sexy thing. People don't like doing it. But when we're having lingering symptoms, it's usually because we haven't put enough effort into the wall supporting. So let's say that you've done antibiotics and maybe it's like been months and you still have diarrhea and you're like, this sucks. This is one of the most common after effects. And while it usually settles down, sometimes it lingers and lingers and lingers and causes a ton of dehydration, which then affects the gut lining even more. So what's happening here? Without enough beneficial bacteria, food often moves too quickly through your system. Nutrients are not being absorbed. Hydration takes a massive hit. And that's why you may feel drained, weak, foggy. Your gut is just super unstable. So what I would do in this case is Espelardi. Espelardi. This is the top tool because it's a probiotic yeast. It survives antibiotics. It helps to reestablish bowel rhythm, and you can continue to take it after the course. I've been on Espelardi for as far back as I can remember because it also protects your body against getting another H. pylori infection. And I find I just do so stinking well on it. Soluble fibers are another great option here. So like psyllium husk, chia, ground flax, they can soak up extra water in the stool and add bulk. Just start really small, like 2 grams, and work your way up from there. Binding foods like bananas, cooked carrots, white rice, this can be helpful in the short term, but just think of them as temporary stabilizers, not like long-term staples, but it should help with the diarrhea initially until you get things figured out. Hydration and electrolytes are absolutely essential because if you've had diarrhea for more than a couple of days, you are being affected, and that's going to make you feel even more run down and more depleted. So when to know it's time to get checked, like I would say if diarrhea is severe and it's been a couple of weeks and it comes with blood or weight loss or a fever, it's really important to see your doctor because post-antibiotic infections like C. diff are serious and require medical treatment, and you should get on top of it. So for most people, layering in the Espelardi and the soluble fiber and consistent hydration is enough to just stabilize. But oftentimes this happens when our ecosystem is totally wiped out. The rainforest is dead. It's like Fern Gully, and we need to take some time to work it back up again. If your head is full of, should I track again? Maybe I should do a detox. Perhaps I have parasites. Should I fast? Should I eat more or less? You're not broken. You're just totally overwhelmed and lacking in direction and confidence. So I coach women who are smart, motivated, and yet also exhausted, trying to figure out all of the things on their own. You don't need more opinions or yet another protocol. You need a clear plan. You need us to go through all your supplements, take out 70% of it, come up with goals that we can achieve and work toward those goals, assess your symptoms, your life, and move forward. So whether you're navigating fatigue, hormone chaos, body goals, gut issues, we'll simplify it and build momentum together. If you feel like you're ready to work with me, you can head on over to healthfulpursuit.com/coaching to learn more about how I work. And then there's an application. And if you decide to fill that out, I'll look at it and get back to you in a couple of days. I just always want to make sure that what you've shared with me, I feel like we can achieve together. Again, that's healthfulpursuit.com/coaching. So now let's get into one of the most common questions, like how long does it actually take to rebuild the gut after antibiotics? Because at the beginning I said like 6 months to a year and you were like, hold the phone. Recovery does not happen overnight. I can't tell you how often I do GI map testing on clients and I see patterns that have been around for like 5+ years. And we expect to take antimicrobial agents for 2 months and everything be fine. Most of my gut protocols are 6 months. And if it were up to me and I could feel comfortable saying it's going to be 9 months, I would start off by saying it's going to be 9 months. The more time you work on the gut, the better. And gut protocols on their own are just so big already because it takes so much to get the gut in a good place. So when we take antibiotics, the first 2 weeks are really the stabilization phase. Your main focus should be like hydration, gentle foods, letting your gut rest. You might notice the diarrhea starts to calm down and bowel movements shift from loose to like somewhat formed. You might have a little more energy, a little less dehydration, and food no longer will be like racing through as quickly. At like the 6 to 8 mark, if you've been layering in the probiotics and the prebiotics and the gut lining support, your microbiome is actively rebuilding. And so you're going to have more predictable bowel movements. They're probably not going to be totally perfect, but they'll be better. Less bloating or cramping during your meals, feeling fuller for longer because like you're actually absorbing the food that you're eating. Your energy starts to stabilize. You have fewer big highs and crashes. You might have a improved tolerance to a wider range of foods. around the 6 to 12 month mark. This is where like true diversity and resilience takes shape. Like truly, it takes time for that ecosystem to regrow. It's exactly like a rainforest or a forest after a fire. It's things you're going to notice during this phase are like bowel patterns that feel consistent and normal, energy and mood, and even skin health reflecting the stability of your gut. Inflammation calms down. You may notice like fewer flare-ups, especially in your joints or sinus or skin rashes or those sorts of things. You should be able to handle more prebiotic rich foods and fibers and ferments without bloating a whole bunch. But remember, and I've talked about this on the show many times, healing is not a linear process. So you may have a week where everything feels amazing, followed by a week where you have loose stools or bloating, especially if you're still cycling. Like I know my gut doesn't feel like totally perfect between day 25 to like day 3 or 4 of my cycle. And so don't be surprised if during your cycle at certain points it feels a little bit wonky. Like as long as the overall trend is moving towards stability and resilience, you're on track. But if you're totally lost, I 100% absolutely would recommend a GI map. If you're just like, my gut's a mess, I took antibiotics 4 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, and it's never been the same, I would test and not guess. Like I share information on here so you can get started. But if you're just like bashing your head against the wall, you're like, I've tried everything, then I really, really think you need a stool test. Like I talk a lot about blood work on the podcast, but I would say stool testing is by far my most favorite because it gives so much feedback that we can use to fully understand what's going on with the gut. So up until now, we've been talking mostly about the gut, like probiotics, prebiotics, nutrients, and food. But healing your gut isn't just about what you put in your mouth. Like from a functional medicine perspective, the gut is deeply connected to the rest of your body. Unfortunately, the allopathic group doesn't believe that. That's why you have a gastroenterologist and like an endocrinologist and an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and nobody talks to anyone. And they all think that the body is like cut up in pieces. But nope, your gut is attached to the rest of your body and influences the rest of your body, especially your nervous system, your sleep, and your daily habits. So let's start with stress. When you're under constant stress, your body is shifting into fight or flight mode. And blood flow is directed away from digestion. Stomach acid production drops and the rhythm of your intestines slow down. So this results in food just sitting around in your stomach, acid reflux, diarrhea, constipation. I see this a lot in clients who are eating perfectly, especially for their gut, but they're just bloated and their nervous system is on total overdrive. Stress management, breath work, reading your Bible, meditation, gentle walks, even unplugging from your phone at night is gut healing. Sleep. Sleep is when your gut lining repairs. It's when your hormones reset. It's when your microbes get a chance to reorganize. So every few nights of poor sleep shift your microbiome toward a more of an inflammatory space. So many people notice this directly, like if you have a late night or disrupted sleep, you wake up with loose stools or bloating or constipation. It's because your gut didn't have a chance to reorganize. So prioritizing deep, consistent rest for 7 to 9 hours is a non-negotiable if you're working to overcome gut infections and gut imbalance. Movement is another big piece. Like I'm not talking about huge workouts. I'm talking about like gentle, consistent movement that supports circulation, lymph flow, the migrating motor complex. So things like daily walks, stretching, body weight exercises. Like people often notice a huge shift. In fact, I just connected with a client the other day and she was dealing with constipation for years and years and years and years and years and years. And I just told her, let's start with chia pudding and walking 30 minutes in the morning. And after a month, she's like, I've had a bowel movement every morning. I'm like, yeah, the body doesn't need much. It just needs simple and calm and sleep and water. And you'd be amazed at how little we need. But I think we overcomplicate it. Not because we try to overcomplicate it, it's because we're just so overwhelmed with all of the options. Mindset is another big piece. Many people feel discouraged after antibiotics, especially if they'd worked really hard to kill their gut before. But again, healing's not linear. We don't live in a vacuum. This is part of the journey. The gut is incredibly resilient, and setbacks are opportunities to deepen the foundation of what you know and how to support yourself. That's what I got. And you're going to bounce back stronger. You're going to learn things. And when we zoom out, gut recovery isn't just about supplements or fiber. It's about creating an environment in your body where healing is possible. So lowering stress, better sleep, consistent movement, a steady mindset, like all send the same message to your microbiome that you are safe, you can repair, and you can thrive. Oftentimes, individuals that have ongoing gut infections that continue to pop up over and over and over and over again, it's a nervous system dysregulation issue. So let's pull all of this together. What did we cover? I kind of blacked out. The first is nutrient absorption. So if stools are loose, food is going to be rushing through, and then you're going to be feeling depleted. It makes sense to wonder whether vitamins and minerals are really being absorbed. Well, the truth is, in those early weeks of antibiotic treatments, absorption is compromised. So you can work around this by leaning on forms that your body can use quickly, like powdered or liquid multivitamins. Open up your capsules, do bone broth, pair meals with a little bit of healthy fat like avocado oil or olive oil, and just making sure that through the fat, we're going to absorb the fat soluble vitamins in the foods we're eating. And that includes vitamin A, D, E, and K. And all these are needed to keep your gut in check. So the strange stool changes during antibiotics, this is a powerful clue about how deeply the antibiotics have affected your microbiome. So when the bacteria that would normally ferment the food and give stool its color, shape, and even smell are gone, it's going to look pale and lifeless. And your gut, when it heals, your stool should start to look more and more like normal, richer color, better smell. So that's a sign that the microbial activity is coming back online. Like, I deal with a lot of poop in my practice, like so many pictures of poop. I am totally good with poop. And I get so many comments when we're going through antimicrobials and gut protocols, how bad our stool smells, because we're literally killing stuff off and balancing the microbiome. So it's totally normal. Normal meaning a normal process. Normal not meaning like, just keep it there. It's great. No. So diarrhea. We've talked about S. boulardii, soluble fiber, binding foods as tools to get our body back in development. Poor sleep can leave the microbiome more vulnerable to imbalance. So making sure that if we're having that constant urgency and the bowel movements are sideways, we prioritize calm, rest, chill, and we need to be making daily choices without overwhelm. Because the worst thing is being like, I just did antibiotics. My gut's a total mess. I'm going to bring in 5,000 different things and be totally stressed out. That's not the point. So in closing, antibiotics are powerful. They save lives. I am definitely happy that I live in a world where there are antibiotics, but they can also disrupt the very ecosystem that your body depends on. So thinking, I'm just going to take an antibiotic and then when I stop, everything will go back to the way it was. That's false. It is false. We want to protect your gut lining during and after antibiotics. We want to stabilize digestion right after. We want to rebuild with probiotics and prebiotic foods, fermented foods. We've covered the nutrients that strengthen your gut lining, tools for calming diarrhea, realistic timelines for recovery. Like, we need to prioritize our sleep, how we manage stress, how we move, our mindset. All of this will bring healing slowly. Now, the real takeaway here is that gut recovery is whole body recovery. There's no silo where the gut just does what the gut does and doesn't impact anything else. Every small, consistent choice that you make, whether it's mineral-rich water or a probiotic capsule, an early bedtime, or a moment of deep breathing, all of it adds up throughout the body. And those choices even signal the body that it's safe to repair, it's safe to rebuild, it's safe to thrive. So if this episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your story. Like, how have antibiotics impacted your health? Like what's been the most supportive in your recovery? I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear how many times you've been on antibiotics. If something that I shared could help you in the future, if you were to go on antibiotics, the things that you've learned, feel free to hit me up on Instagram at Leanne Vogel. And just remember, like, your gut is super resilient. Your body is really wise. With patience, consistently, and whole body support, you will recover. It's just, you got to take the time. Like I said, 6 months to a year. So thanks for joining me today. If you have a friend who you know has been on antibiotics recently or goes on antibiotics, or you just feel like you want to share this with a pal, go ahead and share it because, oh boy, are we on a lot of antibiotics these days. Okay, I will see you back here for another episode. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Healthful Pursuit Podcast. Join us next Tuesday for another episode of the show. If you're looking for free resources, there are a couple of places you can go. The first to my blog, healthfulpursuit.com, where you're going to find loads of recipes. The second is a free parasite protocol that I've put together for you that outlines symptoms, testing, and resources to determine whether or not you have a parasite, plus a full protocol to follow to eradicate them from your life if you need to. That's available at healthfulpursuit.com/parasites. And last but certainly not least, a full list of blood work markers to ask your doctor for so that you can get a full picture of your health. You can grab that free resource by going to healthfulpursuit.com/labs. The Healthful Pursuit Podcast, including show notes and links, provides information in respect to healthy living, recipes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Healthful Pursuit Podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without any representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified health practitioner with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.